Stop learning automation like everyone else. If you're just getting into automation, I want you to do something that might sound a little bit strange. Stop watching tutorials. Seriously, not forever, just long enough to hear me out. Because one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck in automation isn't because they are not smart. It's because they are learning it the same way everyone else is. From one YouTube tutorial to another workflow to another AI tool. And somehow, after hours of learning and watching, they still can't build anything on their own. They can follow instructions, yes, but they can't solve problems. And those are two very different skills. So in this video, I want to share 4 mindset shifts that completely change how I approach automation. And trust me, the last one is the one I wish someone had told me on my day 1 of learning automation. Before we dive in, my name is OT James. You're welcome to Automation with OT James channel. This is actually the very first video I'm making on this channel. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to start because this isn't going to be another channel full of automation tutorials. My goal is much bigger than that. I want to help people think like someone who businesses trust to solve problems. Because anyone can copy a workflow. But when a client says, "We're wasting 6 hours every week doing this manually," there isn't a tutorial made specifically for them, right? That's where your thinking becomes your biggest advantage. So every week on this channel, we'll break down real business problems, real automation projects, and decisions behind them. So you don't just learn what to build, but why it should be built that way. So if that sounds like the kind of content you'll be looking for, you're in the right place. So please, I'd love you to hit the subscribe button, like, and share this video. Let's get into the first mindset shift. Stop collecting tutorials, start collecting problems. Imagine 2 people. One has watched 200 automation tutorials, knows about every make.com model, can follow almost any workflow. The other has watched only 30 tutorials, but has built a customer support system, a CRM automation, an appointment booking workflow, and a lead management system. Which one would you trust with a real client? The second person, right? Exactly. Because tutorials teach you what someone else built, while projects teach you how to think. And that's the difference. One of the biggest traps beginners fall into is believing that watching equals learning. It doesn't. Watching gives you information. Building gives you understanding. So here's something I challenge you to do. The next time you finish a tutorial, don't open another one. Close YouTube. Rebuild that same tutorial from memory. Now, when you successfully build that automation, right, ask yourself some certain questions like, how would I improve this? What happens if this step fails? What if the client wants a different process? Different challenging questions. And at that point, that's when you stop copying and start thinking. And that's where the real growth begins. So don't just don't just measure your progress by how many tutorials you've watched. Measure it by how many real problems you can solve. Because businesses don't pay you for finishing a playlist. They actually pay you for making their work easier. Okay? The second mindset shift is probably the hardest one for me to accept because it was the hardest one for me to accept because I thought I was learning automation when really I was just learning software. And those are 2 different things. So let's talk about that. Stop learning automation, start learning business. Can I tell you what I think is one of the biggest misconceptions in this industry? People think they are building a career in automation. I don't think you are. I think you're building a career in solving business problems. And automation is simply the tool you're using. There's a big difference. Now, imagine 2 people walking into a hospital. Just bear with me because I love using analogy so we can understand it clearly. Now, imagine 2 people walking into a hospital, right? One is an electrician, the other is a doctor. The electrician sees wiring, the doctor sees what? Patients. That's exactly what happens in automation. Beginners see models, professionals see processes. Beginners ask, what model do I use? Professionals ask, why is the process manual in the first? You see the difference? Now, that's the difference. That's the mindset shift, right? So here's what I wish someone had told me earlier. Nobody wakes up and says, I need a make.com automation today, or I need an NSN automation today, or a Zapier automation today, whatever tool it is. Instead, they say, you're losing leads. My team keeps making mistakes. Things like, we're wasting too much time on repetitive work. Stuff like that. Those are the real problems. Automation is just one possible solution. And the moment you understand that, you stop chasing workflows and you start solving problems. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you walk into a restaurant, right? Don't just eat. Also observe. Ask yourself, who takes the order? How does it get to the kitchen? How is payment confirmed? How is the customer updated? Where is the time being wasted? Where are people repeating the same task? Do that often enough, and you start seeing automation opportunities everywhere. I tell you the truth. Not because you've memorized Anytime or Make.com or a tool, but because you've trained yourself to see inefficiencies, right? And here's something I always remind myself. Tools teach you how to automate. Businesses teach you what to automate. Don't miss that. Because tools will change. 5 years from now, you might all be using something completely different. But that's the reality of things. Tools get updated and optimized. The world changes quickly. But the ability to understand a business and identify what is slowing it down and also design a better system will always be valuable. So don't become obsessed with learning every feature. Become obsessed with understanding how businesses work, because that's the skill clients actually pay for. All right. So now maybe you're thinking, okay, I should stop chasing tutorials and start solving real business problems. You're right. But there's one more mistake that quietly holds a lot of people back, and beginners. I see it among beginners as well. I made it too. And once I fixed it, I started improving much faster. Let's talk about that. Stop trying to build the perfect automation. Build one that actually works. Let me ask you something. How many automations have you planned but never actually built? Maybe you've told yourself, I need to learn APIs first. I should understand webhooks better. I'll start after I finish this course. I'm just not ready yet. I've said those same things. Then I realized something. Perfection is one of the biggest productivity killers in automation. Trust me. Because while you're waiting to know everything, someone else is building. And every project they finish teaches them something no tutorial will ever teach them. One common mistake almost every beginner makes is believing that their first automation has to be impressive. No, it doesn't. It just has to work. If your first workflow is messy, good. If you had to Google half of the solution, even better. If it breaks a few times before it finally works, welcome to automation. That's not failure, that's experience. Here's a rule I try to live by throughout my automation journey. Version 1 is allowed to be ugly because version 1 has only one job: to exist. You can't improve something you never built. You can't fix an idea that's still in your head. So build first, improve later. Think about learning to riding. See it like trying to learn to ride a bicycle. Nobody becomes a cyclist by watching videos. Eventually, you have to get on the bike. You wobble, you might fall, but that's how to learn. Automation is no different. So here's my challenge for you. When this video ends, don't watch another tutorial. Build something. Anything. Automate a form. Send yourself an email. Log data into a spreadsheet. Start small, because every finished project builds confidence, and confidence isn't downloaded. It's earned. I honestly believe this is why so many people stay beginners. They spend months preparing instead of months building. And here's the funny part. The automation professionals you look up to today, their first workflow probably wasn't impressive either. The difference is they didn't stop after the first one. They kept building. So far, we've talked about learning differently, thinking like a business problem solver, and building instead of waiting. But there's one final mindset shift, and in my opinion, is the one that turns automation from a skill into a career. Let's talk about that. Stop chasing tools, start building a reputation. This is the lesson I wish someone had told me on day one. A lot of people ask questions like, should I learn Make.com? Is anything better? What is the next AI tool? Those aren't bad questions, right? But I don't think they are the most important ones. Here's the question I'd rather ask. What do I want to become known for? Because tools change. They always have. They always will. If your career is built around one tool, your value rises and falls with that. But if your career is built around solving problems, you always have something valuable to offer. Think about the people you admire in tech. They are not respected because they know a particular piece of software. They're respected because people trust how they think. When something goes wrong, they are the person people call. That's a reputation. And reputations aren't built by collecting certifications or learning another platform. They are built by solving one real problem after another consistently, right? So here is a challenge. The next time you are about to watch another tutorial, pause, ask yourself, what problem can I solve today? It doesn't have to be a huge project. Automate something from your church. Improve a process at work. Help a small business. Solve something real. Because every real problem you solve builds something far more valuable than another completed. It builds your reputation. All right. If you made it this far, I hope one thing is clear. The channel isn't about mastering make.com or N8N or any automation tool. And it isn't about chasing every new AI tool that comes out. It's about becoming the kind of person who can walk into any business, understand how it works, spot what can be improved, and build systems that genuinely make life easier. That's the journey I'm on. Not because I've figured everything out, no, but because I believe that's the kind of professional that is worth becoming. So if you're interested in learning about real projects, real business problems, and real lessons from my journey, I'd love to have you here. And consider subscribing once again, because every week we'll build, learn, and grow together. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What's one repetitive task that you've noticed this week that you think you could automate? Leave it in the comments. I'll read everyone, and it might even inspire a future video. Until next time, keep building, keep thinking, keep solving, and I'll see you in the next one.